We'll do the Bishop Grady laying out what the fuck going on for this BFN report. Alabama Governor Kay Ivey, she actually signed that bill that I told y'all about yesterday into law. The bill that basically says that a doctor who performs an abortion can receive up to 99 years in prison for carrying that out. It essentially bans abortions, no exceptions for if you've been raped or in cases of incest, and it's considered extreme even by people on the right wing. Now, I will continue to reiterate this. It's weird to have this bill. First off, Kay Ivey is a woman. This is a white woman. I saw a ring on her finger, so she's probably married or whatever, but it's surprising to see a woman bring this into law. The Senate actually, who voted it in, was actually, you're talking about 25 old white men. But I'll continue to say this. What are they going to do with all of the excess kids that are expected to come from this or whatever? Are they going to, is this about adrenochrome? Is this about slavery? What is this about? Green Wall and graduation. Something to think about. The new world order, Bishop Grady laying down what the fuck going on for this BFN report. So over in Missouri, now we've been thinking about Alabama and we're thinking about Georgia, but I've been telling y'all it's actually a movement, especially amongst these red states, to basically put the clamps on abortion to get rid of the shit at all completely. Now, or legalize abortion, we will say. But check this out. So in Missouri, actually, the Republican-led Senate of that state voted to ban abortions for pregnancies that have gone past 8 weeks. So no exceptions. Now, this is considered mildly restrictive, but it's not the most restrict thing ever. But nevertheless, the architects of this bill, as well as the architects of the other bills in the other states, are all aimed at like trying to go to the Supreme Court and overturn the Roe versus Wade decision. Again, what is the point of doing that? All that's going to happen is excess pregnancy, at least in the short term. What are we going to do with those extra kids? Is this about organ harvesting? Green Wall and graduation, though. New will do the Bishop Grady laying out what the fuck going on for this BFN report. So Donald Trump has actually barred telecom giant Huawei or Highway, I forget how you pronounce that shit, but Chinese telecom giant, it's spelled Huawei, barred them from installing foreign-made equipment in the United States. He declared a national emergency in doing this, even though we're already in a national emergency, so I don't really understand that part. But basically, the part that is news, at least to me, is that he was formally trying to protect Hawaii. He was trying to protect this country. I know I'm not saying it right, so don't stone me too bad. Just put the correct pronunciation in the comments, please. But he was formally trying to protect this company from the trade war. Now it seems like he's throwing them right in the middle of it. Mind you, he raised the tariffs on China's $200 billion worth of goods from 10% to 25%, and is considering doing something to $300 billion more worth of goods. Green Wall and graduation. We'll do the Bishop Grady laying out what the fuck going on for this BFN report. So Donald Trump is actually, not Donald Trump, but the White House has actually delayed plans on putting tariffs of up to 25% on auto parts and imported cars. So all you motherfuckers that's out here bragging about your foreigns and all of that, y'all already have to pay a little bit extra for them auto parts to get shipped in. Now they talking about upping the ante, but that plan has actually been delayed. Now this comes as Canada's foreign minister actually came from DC trying to lift the tariffs that were being imposed on aluminum and steel, but didn't successfully do so. The Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin actually said that NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement, won't actually be ratified, or the successor of it won't actually be ratified until they reach an agreement to lift these tariffs. Green Wall and graduation. We'll go to Bishop Grady laying out what the fuck going on for this BFN report. Donald Trump is actually unveiling a plan today to change immigration, basically capping the immigration rates overall, capping the number of families that are being granted asylum and allowed to actually reunite with their families, but also changing the rates at which people will be accepted into the country based on their merit. You know, they want highly skilled workers and people who already speak English, which in isolation I'm not completely against, but And that percentage right now is at 12%. Is going to change. Supposedly it's supposed to change to 57%. So 57% of the migrants that will be allowed into this country will actually be highly skilled workers, or fully English speakers. You know what I mean? Probably a mixture of both or whatever. But it's actually going to also make it drastically more difficult to even enter the country for some of these migrants. We all know people, especially people in the hood. We know people who don't speak no English. You mean to tell me they're not allowed to be in the country? They can't produce anything for the country? Green Wall and graduate. We'll go to Bishop Grady laying out what the fuck going on for this BFN report. So the White House actually said that they will refuse the request of the Senate Judiciary Committee, or the House Judiciary Committee, pardon me, not the Republican-filled Senate Judiciary Committee, but the House Judiciary Committee that's actually run by Democratic Representative Jerry Nadler. They requested documents basically to investigate Donald Trump and the whole Robert Mueller investigation, basically trying to get them to turn over the documents, turn over the actual and unredacted investigation and all of that or whatever. And the White House refused the request, basically saying they're trying to have a do-over of the Robert Mueller investigation. Now, that's a little fallacious to even say some shit like that, because the reality is the unredacted report has yet to be submitted to Congress. So, they kind of playing games, but the committee actually hopes to hold them in contempt of Congress. We'll see how this pans out. Green Wall and grad. The new daughter Bishop Grady laying y'all know what the fuck going on for this BFN report. So leaders yesterday from Paris and New Zealand actually came together and created what was called the Christchurch Call. A label that after the massacre that happened in Christchurch, New Zealand, where white nationalists went into 2 mosques and ended up murdering 51 people. This also called for Jacinda Ardern, the Prime Minister of New Zealand. She actually, as a result, had banned semi-automatic weapons throughout the country. But nevertheless, this particular call is designed to come up with a plan to combat online extremism. Now, they have there's several countries that actually signed on to this call. 16 countries actually, to be exact, and I think like 8 tech companies. But the United States has said they can't do so because they're not in a position to do so because it might violate the First Amendment. But we'll see how just letting y'all know what's happening. Green Wall and graduate. The new daughter Bishop Grady laying y'all know what the fuck going on for this BFN report. So over in the capital of Yemen, which is known as Sana'a, SANA''A, Saudi Arabian warplanes actually bombed the residential areas over there. So if you bomb in the residential areas, you're going to kill civilians. 6 civilians were killed, dozens more wounded. And if it's Saudi Arabian warplane, then it's backed by the United States, since they're in the weapons deal with Saudi Arabia. $100 million weapons deal, I believe. $100 billion possibly? I forget the exact number. I'll have to double check that shit. Supposed to know that off the top of my head, but nevertheless, it's a big deal, and it contributes to a lot of the war crimes, unfortunately, that Saudi Arabians have been able to commit, putting Yemen in such devastation. Nevertheless, this was all done trying to get at the Houthi rebels. After clashes between the Houthi rebels and the Saudi Arabian security forces. So, that's what's happening. Mind you, I told y'all about Houthi rebels actually attacking the oil vessels that were supposed to leave Arabia going to the U.S. Green Wall and graduation. For the new world daughter Bishop Grady laying y'all know what the fuck going on for this BFN report. So over in Khartoum, the capital of Sudan, there actually have been shootings. The government forces are actually opened fire on pro-democracy protesters, wounding 14 people. They were talking about live ammunition on crowds. Now, motherfuckers is actually out there protesting because they want civilian rule after they got rid of the Omar al-Bashir, the former president of Sudan. And once they ousted him last month, the military was actually coming in to actually install a rule until they found the proper transition into power for someone else to take. But the civilians weren't having that, so there's been a lot of rambunctious protesting. This shooting I'm talking about now actually happened several days after there were already like several people killed from these same similar protests or whatever. Now the military has said they're suspending their talks with the pro-democracy protesters because they have failed to pretty much de-escalate any tension. So we'll see what happens. Green Wall and graduation. The New World Order, Bishop Grady, letting y'all know what the fuck going on for this BFN report. So over in, it's over near the Gaza Strip. You know what I'm saying? They were protesters of Palestinian descent that actually were marking the 71st anniversary of what was known as Nakba, or catastrophe. This is the anniversary of when the Israel state was formed, and then hundreds of thousands of Palestinians were actually forcibly removed from their homes. So during these protests, Israeli forces actually opened fire on crowds of protesters, and you're talking about at least 65 people being injured, a bunch from gunshot wounds, a bunch more from like chemical gas cans and shit like that, you know what I mean? So a lot of people had to be treated. It's just like another day in that neighborhood, unfortunately. But stay tuned though. Green War and graduation. The New World Order, letting y'all know what the fuck is going on, man. This Bishop Grady in the building, but telling y'all about more fuck shit, man. I kind of get tired of this shit, but I gotta let y'all know what's happening. I've been telling y'all about what was going on with Iran, and tensions escalating. The U.S. is actually sending carrier strike groups and bombers out there, whatever. Well, they revealed yesterday that the reason that they had made their recent moves to get into the Persian Gulf and all of that and show their strength had to do with some photos that were being shown of Iran having missiles on these boats. Now, basically showing their own military might or whatever, and that was taken as a threat. Now, most people, this kind of seems absurd because first off, everybody is entitled to defend themselves. You know what I'm saying? And this country a lot of officials, especially even abroad, you know what I mean, even European officials, shit, even officials within the Trump administration themselves are saying that, you know, these were likely defensive missiles. But nevertheless, our government has yet made another military move that could lead to war. Green War and graduation. The New World Order, Bishop Grady, letting y'all know what the fuck going on for this BFN report. So the Department of Transportation, they actually have halted all flights, cargo flights and passenger flights going in and out of Venezuela. Now this is seen as a way to actually stifle, to cripple Venezuela essentially, but also probably because there's they're trying to get this coup d'etat underway basically. So the new regime, the Juan Guaido opposition leader regime, could actually come into power and dethrone President Nicolas Maduro, who still has the support of the military. Now this comes as now I'm telling you about how basically the U.S. wants a whole nother regime in there. They've actually acted on this in the U.S., saying that the Venezuelan embassy in D.C. is actually open for the opposition leader and their groups. But that's why activists have actually been there inside the embassy, whatever, protesting. And Jesse Jackson actually was able to get through the police lines and actually get them some food. So, you know what I mean? Keep the fight alive. Green War and graduation. The New World Order, Bishop Grady, letting y'all know what the fuck going on for this BFN report. So, over in northwest Russia, actually, there's the entrance to the Arctic Ocean, right? So, around this entrance, this actually, over the weekend, reached a record-shattering high temperature of 84 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, typically, it's actually a whole 30 degrees lower than that this time of year. So this lets you know what time we're in. Now, this also comes as the National Snow and Ice Data Center recorded that there's a record low sea ice extent. Basically, all of the sea ice, almost all of the sea ice that's older than 4 years old is gone. So we're talking about rising sea levels. We're talking about just a different looking planet, basically, Earth. And this is coming after I told y'all last week about how, or earlier this week, pardon me, about how carbon dioxide levels were actually measured by meteorologists to be at 415 parts per million. That's the highest it's ever been in our recorded history and in 3 million years. Green War and graduation, y'all. The New World Order, Bishop Grady, letting y'all know what the fuck going on for this BFN report. Now, y'all know about them wildfires back in Cali last year, especially the Camp Fire. Now, this particular fire actually came, and after it left, it scorched 150,000 acres. That's now look up how much an acre is, how many square miles that motherfucking acre is, and you'll see how that's a lot of fucking land. And you're talking about 85 people dead. This is the shit that actually had people leaving their homes, celebrities and all of that, whatever. Well, it turns out that the Pacific Gas and Electric Company is to blame for the start of this fire. So their electrical transmission lines are actually ignited 2 dry vegetation spots. So even though it is a cause of climate change and it is directly related to the droughts that are going on in Cali, they didn't just start out of nowhere. So PG&E, they actually accepted the determination, whatever. I wonder what's this going to look like as far as lawsuits and all of that. The motherfuckers should pay out the ass forever. 85 bodies, green wall and graduation. The New World Order, Bishop Grady laying y'all know what the fuck going on for this BFN Report. Now, the American Museum of Natural History and the Metropolitan Museum of Art have big prominent art museums in New York or whatever have actually severed ties with the Sackler family. So a lot of the protesting that people have been doing about this shit has officially worked. So when I say severed ties, the Sackler family is actually the billionaire company that's behind Purdue Pharma, that's been basically introduced all of the Oxycontins and opioids, and you know what I'm saying, probably got your favorite rappers leaned out and all that shit, whatever. They're responsible for that. Now, in doing this though, in knowing this, they also have been contributing big money to a lot of museums or whatever, keeping their name alive. You see Sackler families listed in some of these prominent museums. And, you know, people have been protesting and urging them to stop taking money from the motherfuckers, disassociate the motherfuckers with the motherfuckers. And that's basically what happened. Green wall and graduation. We'll go to Bishop Grady laying y'all know what the fuck going on for this BFN Report. Now, I think when it comes to the presidency, we know that we could see what people's values are by who they pardon. I think Donald Trump, I think it's clear that he's just been pardoning straight up crooks. Like, it's not people that have been, like, you know, dealt an unfair hand or moved in you know what I'm saying? Like, just caught on rules that might be arguable, debatable, whatever. Nah, motherfuckers that straight up crooks. And this latest pardon that he has is no different. Conrad Black is actually a Canadian media mogul, we'll call him that. Owned his company, Hollinger International, actually owned, you know, the Chicago Times and papers in London and like over 400 news outlets or whatever. And the man even wrote a book, dick sucking Donald Trump last year, Donald J. Trump, a president like no other. Well, so of course he gets pardoned, man. Green wall and graduation. The New World Order, Bishop Grady laying y'all know what the fuck going on for this BFN Report. This move actually kind of throws me off, and it makes it to me more seem like this politics shit is like, it really is political theater, because Mayor of New York City, Bill de Blasio, has joined the Democratic presidential race. Now, he joined 24 other candidates, so there's gonna be 25 motherfuckers on these stages actually running for president, debating and all of that. I think that clearly just whether it waters down anybody's argument or any debates that people could have. Like, how can 25 motherfuckers be all against each other? That doesn't make sense. You mean to tell me half of y'all couldn't find favor or support in the other half that might be running? It seems weird to me, especially for Bill de Blasio. He don't even have a whole handle on his own city, even though he is one of the biggest cities in the world. But it's like, come on, man. Green wall and graduation.